Welcome, brothers and sisters, to the Meher Baba program. I'm Fred Stankus, along with my co-host, Suhas Ginde. Welcome, Suhas.
Thank you.
Today's program is Meher Baba Calling, Volume 7, or Part 7. It's quotes and messages from Meher Baba. Before we begin, we have a special 10-minute film to show. This is actual it was 8mm film taken in 1960 by Don Stevens and one of Baba's disciples, Erich Jesawala. Don also was one of Baba's close Western disciples. It was directed by Baba's sister, Mani Arani, and it begins with somewhat of a description of Baba's city of birth, Pune, India, and then takes you to the hospital he was born, the high school he matriculated at, and the college, Deccan College, and then it brings you to some footage of Baba bathing the feet of lepers and giving them a little bit of rupees or clothes, something as a gift to take with him. So let us begin now as Meher Baba at Home, 1960.
Here we are looking out over Pune, and just next to the Sassoon Hospital, where Baba was born. And then, of course, he went to secondary school at St. Vincent's School, also in Pune. Typical British colonial architecture. And then started into Deccan College, where, as you all know, Baba was extremely normal, intelligent, interested in the arts, interested in sports student. He loved cricket, of course, all of his life. So this is Deccan College. And in Pune, and to this day, Baba's home is still there and inhabited by members of his family. Baba Jan, the perfect master who embraced Baba on the forehead and removed the veil, is buried in this particular spot. And of course the mango tree, where Baba Jan used to sit in the afternoon as the soldiers would go home. And it was here also that Baba would stop by. And here we have a typical scene of Baba washing the feet, in this case of lepers, but so often he also washed the feet of the poor. And as you all know, very frequently at religious, there's the Maharani at Baroda, who was so close to Baba so much of his life. Here's Baba getting prepared to have the lepers climb up on the little platform where he will wash their feet and bow down. The umbrella turns out to be quite a bit of a problem because Baba wanted to be sure that the pictures, motion pictures being taken, turned out well. So the umbrella was bobbing back and forth, part of the time to protect him because it was a hot day, and part of the time to be pushed out to the side so Don could get a better picture of what was going on. You notice the bandage around Baba's head, which Erich, in a fit of stubbornness and impatience with all the skin infections Baba would pick up, insisted that Baba put it around his forehead in the latter part of his life, and he went through these actions with the poor and the lepers. He would give them a small token gift of money as well. It was a very precise operation Baba would carry out. He would be in a certain particular place. I think this was partly to protect the amount of bending that he had to do because, of course, in this period he was already experiencing very serious pains in his neck due to the wearing of the vertebrae. Very often, of course, they would lack toes or even a large part of the foot. Baba would still bend down and touch them. Some quite young, of course. Sad to see them so incapacitated so early in their lives. The lineup ready to go. Godwin was able to walk, but sometimes they're not able really to move with any real ability. This one, for instance, can't move by himself, so he's going to wait for a friend, a soldier, perhaps a retired soldier, I suppose, who's going to help him get along. Carries him on his back because he can't move by himself unaided. And there they are, all ready to go back home on the bus. Baba very much wanted that I take films of him on this occasion to show what the result was when he decided that it was not proper for the avatar to be seen as a hopeless cripple for the latter part of his life, and decided to start walking. You remember that in '58, when he was in America, he was carried in a chair or in a wheelchair. And then one day, he decided to start walking, and that was it. Even even so, much of the time when he walked, he would hold on to the arm or lean on someone. But here he is showing off the gardens. It's Alan Newell who's carrying the umbrella for Baba. Alan had been allowed by Baba to come over to visit. He was finishing his school in The Hague, in the English school at the time. So he is showing all of us through Meher's garden, which of course was one of the great joys of Baba's life. Meher was the gardener, and Kaka was the person who did the hard work. After Kaka left, I'm not sure who did it. Meherji was back. But you see, even unaided and in unsteady ground, Baba could walk quite well by himself. And this is Peter, Monty's little Cocker Spaniel dog. I had a little Cocker Spaniel almost exactly the same age called Lucky. So Monty and I had a great correspondence comparing which Cocker Spaniel was outdoing the other. And these are the designs that the Indian people traditionally place in important places in their gardens at certain festival times. The front porch of Meherazad. Meher has beautiful potted plants all through the garden. Incidentally, many of those plants are being cut.
Well, wonderful, isn't it? Wonderful footage. That was taken in 1960 by Don Stevens, and he was narrating, and Eric Chesawala, directed by Mani, and it was edited in France by some of Don Stevens' proteges. So we're going to begin. This is quote or message 35, Suhas, and in Meher Baba Calling, it's "Be resigned to my will," I think, which is so appropriate these days, because there's a lot of people who may be feeling something. This is November 5th in the world today, so what does Baba say about "Be resigned to my will"?
Okay. Be resigned to my will. This is what Baba said in his messages. Be content with your lot, whether rich or poor, happy or miserable. Understand that God has designed it for your own good, and be resigned to His will. Be resigned completely to my will, and my will be yours. It's another saying. Then he goes on and says, some like work, some like play, but when you do it for me, then it is the same. This is Vedanta in a nutshell, meaning not taking sides, yet be above the duality. I want you to remain undisturbed and unshaken by the force of life's currents. For whatever the circumstances, they too will be of my own creation. If you endure your lot with patience and contentment, accepting it as His will, you are loving God.
Oh, it's a very good message for today.
It's not easy to follow, but that's what Baba said and says.
You know, it makes you sort of feel free, too, when he says, be content with your lot, whether rich or poor, happy or miserable. Mm-hmm. Understand that God has designed it for your own good.
Yes.
And be resigned to His will. And so, if you could understand that, you feel somewhat free. You feel that, hey, everything is perfect. I don't have to want something that is not mine or wish that I had something so-and-so may have. Because, most people in the world always want to keep up with the Joneses or atop them, I mean, success is attributed, well, I don't want to say, but there are some TV shows, reality shows, I don't want to mention the names, but where they espouse, being better, competing, rising to the top,
Yes, but that's
and
life
like
in
it
the
says,
world.
It says it's not personal, it's business. Mm-hmm. They use that saying, so, I mean, in a way, that's how people get attached to the so-called achievements, and they become miserable when they don't achieve.
Yeah, but these messages, Fred, are for people who want another way of looking at life, another attitude. And it's rising above the fray, essentially. People who want to follow a spiritual path have to get away from the creation, the Maya, the illusion, and not get caught into it. And this is why he says, you are where you are because of your consciousness that has put you where you are.
So even the world situation that it is today is his creation.
Everything is created. It's his will.
I know people sometimes try to dissect it because they want some answers.
They want to impose their will over his will, and that does not work. It's got to be, you have to accept his will and suppress or put your will or align your will with his will.
But at the same time, though, shouldn't you defend your rights as a human being?
Well, you have the right to live in the world and follow certain...
No, what I'm saying, that if you had a situation where your civil rights were being somewhat affected, I mean, wouldn't you feel that a person had the right
Yes.
to like they say, when a country goes to war, it basically goes to war based on the aspect of the law of the land. A person goes into the military because, like Baba said, if the law of the land says they ask you to go to the war, you should go because that's the stage that
If that's what you're asked to do, or if that's your calling.
Right. Yeah. So, but I'm saying, but if it is distasteful to others, even though the law of the land is saying you should go to war, what are you to do?
Well, it has to be honest, and you have to be honest and sincere with what you feel and believe, and probably follow your conscience more. But Baba wanted people to be above the fray. He did not want people that were in his net, so to speak, who had come within his influence to get involved in the worldly life, so to speak. You live in the world, you try to get your needs satisfied. You go to work, you do your duties.
But like what he said at the beginning, be content with your lot, whether rich or poor. In other words, he's not basically knocking a rich person. But sometimes people equate spiritual progress by being somewhat of a pauper or...
You don't have to be a mendicant.
Or mendicant, yeah.
Or beggar.
You can be well. A good example is the film footage we just viewed was produced through Don Stevens, who was an executive with a big oil company,
Standard Oil.
Right, and so I mean the point of it is, so he went through questioning in his mind. He went to Baba and says, Baba, I want to be with you. I want to follow you. And Baba came back to him and said, I have you exactly where you should be.
Exactly. So who do you think put you in your place is what he told him.
That's what he said.
So who do you think put these people who are in power in their place? Think about that. Baba does, because they're all his agents doing his bidding, so you can think about Baba more. Because whatever is happening up there, you're calling out to Baba as an alternative. And that's how Baba will help you go through your life. Your life is what you're going through. The outer things are going on all the time, in some way, shape, or form. These things that are going on have happened in the past. They will keep on going, and they'll keep on happening in the future. 100 years from now, there'll be other situations. Not quite like this, but they may be just as intense. And they're there for a reason. Creation goes on. It's an illusion. We get caught into illusion, we lose our sense of perspective. We get back on track by focusing on Baba and what he stands and represents for, which is not what the others stand and represent for. So this is something that people are on a spiritual path have to dissociate themselves from the worldly life or the creation. What I'm talking about is what's going on around them. This is why some people get away from the worldly life. They're still in the world and they do their thing. They go to work, they fulfill their duties to their family, to their children, educate them, and they go on. What use is it to complain? You can only do so much within your sphere of influence. This is why Baba said, be content with your lot, whether rich or poor, and then he says, happy or miserable. We're living in a world of duality. You can be happy one day and miserable the next moment. You win over somebody else's misfortune, and you're happy, you're elated because you won something, you beat somebody out in a competition. But the next day you might have to be totally miserable because you'll get the opposite effect, because you have to balance these feelings out. If not in this life, in another lifetime. Today you may be rich and powerful, the next life you may have to experience the opposite. So you may be crippled and poor, you may be in bad health, but that's the reason. That's why you see people around you in all stages of life.
And according to Baba, there's only one life, the life of the soul, and we take all these intermediate lives that are called really, in essence, dreams. Baba says the soul goes through 8,400,000 births and deaths as a human, but they're actually, in essence, they're dreams. The reality of the life is the one soul.
This life we are living is a dream. It's a God's dream. And in this dream, there are things happening on the gross plane, on our solid plane. We get involved in that and take it for real. We take the dream, the movie, to be real. And that's why we suffer. We're either happy one day. If our horse came through, we'd be ecstatic.
Yeah, we are.
Right?
Right.
But our horse didn't come through, or whatever it might be. So we're unhappy. But who knows? 5, 7, 10 years from now, something else will happen that'll make you ecstatic. So you have to go through these feelings of unhappiness because it's there for a reason. The main thing, as Baba has said, when his manifestation takes place, it's because so many people in this world will think about God or think about Him. And the rest, well, they fall by the wayside.
We should conclude with this next. I understand we have a couple of minutes left already.
Okay.
This language of the heart, we could comment on this. It says, compared with the essentials of the path, which is the spiritual path.
Yeah.
The 3 most unimportant things to do are to garland me, which is to put floral arrangement around his neck, Baba's neck, to bow down to me, which you probably viewed before.
That's the practice that's in India.
And sing empty words of praise or perform arti, which is a ritual. They are not necessarily the signs of love for God.
Yeah, those are rituals and forms of worship.
Exactly.
To somebody or not.
And this is the point here. The prayer God hears is the prayer from the heart. That raising of the heart, that suffering of the heart, that is what God pays attention. That's what God pays attention to. It is better not to worship if you cannot do so with your heart in it. It says, God does not listen to the language of the tongue, nor to the language of the mind. He responds to the language of the heart. And it says, the language of the heart is the song of love for the beloved. The beloved can only be found within you, for his only abode is the heart. And Baba says, this is beautiful, saying, do not lose heart, but keep me in your heart, and remember I am always with you. And that almost goes along with what you were saying in the other message.
Well, I've said that before.
Yeah, we still have 3 minutes.
Focus on Baba and think about your worries with the world. It doesn't work. You may think it works, but that's like, you can't have 2 ways about it. You can't have love for Baba and then go on thinking about, or when you're praying to Baba. If you're not praying with your heart in the prayers, then why say them? It's just utter babble. It's muttering words. They are meaningless. I've mentioned this at one of our meetings there, where I said, if you pray to God, you have to focus on God. There are images of Him in the center. Why think about your problems at home or your checkbook account and how much money is in there, how much money needs to be in there, what are you going to have for dinner, somebody's waiting for you at home. These things you can think about them after you say your prayers. But when you say your prayers, you have to focus on Baba. You're saying that's what Baba's talking about. Sincerity and honesty deep down inside. God dwells in the heart. And I don't mean physical heart.
So He's in the heart of everyone.
Yes, including the people you dislike. When Baba says, when you can love your enemies, then you have risen to a high level. Then you have real love.
Well, what's amazing, you were mentioned as Paul Brunton earlier.
Yeah, there was a message.
He basically wrote a book against Baba. And Baba basically said, He's doing my work. He said, it's good that He's doing my work for me.
Baba has always said that if you believe in Him, say so. If you do not believe, that if He's a fraud, say so. Because whether you like Him or don't like it doesn't change Him. See? Baba is always whatever He says He is, and whether you believe in Him or do not believe Him, whether you accept Him or do not accept Him, He's still Baba.
Of course,
we had
to clarify to the viewing public what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Meher Baba has stated in 1954 that he is the avatar of this age, which is the Messiah of the age.
Mm-hmm. The prophet, the Messiah, the prophet.
And so he was born in 1894 and he died in 1969, dropped his physical form. And
January 31st.
Many people go to Baba's tomb on pilgrimage. It's in a city called Ahmednagar, which is about 200 kilometers from Bombay. Mm-hmm. And so people are welcome to go there. There's a pilgrim center where you can go and you can visit, and there's a few surviving disciples left. Most of them are gone.
But getting older.
Yeah, they're up in their 80s and 90s, and so looks like we're getting the
But the
wrap-up
people who
side.
go there are the ones where Baba has touched their heart.
Yeah.
He's not touched their brain.
Right, and he's for all faiths and walks of life. His message is...
He's above religion.
Exactly. He says, I've come not to teach,
but to awaken you to the reality which you are.
That's right.
And all around you is just illusion. You're swimming in this ocean of illusion.
Right, so we'll have to wrap it up. This part 7, we'll do part 8 next week. And so until next time, as Meher Baba says...
Don't worry, be happy in my love.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba ji.